Hello everyone, Forest Focus. As Nottingham Forest make progress in the Europa League after speaking at Utrecht, can they do the same thing in the Premier League when they take on Tottenham this weekend? We'll preview that game in full and look at the struggles of James McAtee and Dan Ndoye as they fail to make the impact we all hoped for in the country of, first of all, Michael Temps, I haven't seen you for ages. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Lots going off at Trent Bridge. Sorry to keep away. These European games haven't been classics, have they? They haven't been kind of free-flowing wonderland that we might have expected. Maybe built it up a little bit too much. I think the games have been a bit dull, haven't they? For the most part.
I thought last night was all right. We'll get into that a bit more. I didn't mind last night. And maybe the crowd helped on the atmosphere and all that. But a fair point, certainly, about they're not nothing's quite lived up to what we hoped for this season in general, certainly. Pete Blackburn, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. I can vouch for Graz being dull.
Yeah.
That was an absolute horror show. I don't want to watch that one back anytime soon. Yeah, I'm good. I'm not sure if I'm feeling sort of smug that I'm receiving lots of text messages from people who are feeling like absolute death this morning. Or just a bit disappointed that I missed out, but yeah, maybe a bit of both.
But Paul Morley and Chris were out till 2 a.m. With Paul Morley's dad, I assume he's like an absolute legend. He's like one of the Rolling Stones. This guy, he's still cracking on. He's 70s and 80s, but yeah, Paul Senior, Chris, and Matt from Forest all over as well. Certainly had a good weekend or a good night, and I hope everyone else did as well. Mikey, Clarke, how are you?
Yeah, really good. I saw the first half last night, and then I went to see PTK at the arena, and then I came back and watched the second half, and I thought the second half was really good. That could have been because I had about a bottle of wine. So we shall see as we dissect it. But yeah, I'm good, Matt. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Check out the post-match show last night, by the way. That was a good one with Sam and Dan. That really in-depth analysis of the game. For less than in-depth analysis, Temps, just expand on your thoughts on last night then. What didn't you like?
Well, part of it is rotation, right? We've established now we can't play the A team in Europe at this stage at least, so we need to give some airtime to the backup characters. Some of it's really impressed. Great first half from Douglas Luiz, for example. I think Dominguez shows that he's an all-action footballer and can contribute in any circumstance. Kalimuendo needed that goal, but then on the flip, I see things like the first half performance of James McAtee, and just see a player of such promise who's underperforming when he gets the opportunity that he's craved. So that was the kind of the positive and the negative from my perspective last night. And I think just more generally, I would have liked every single player to have taken that chance of Sean Dyche coming in, just to draw a line under what's gone before and make a positive personal account of themselves. And I look at someone like Sangare, who's absolutely done that, right, and became a central part of the style of football that Sean Dyche wants to play and has made himself indispensable pretty quickly. And certain others who haven't grasped that opportunity in quite the same manner. So all things said, really happy with the impact that Sean Dyche has had. I think he, like us supporters, have a pretty clear assessment of where we're at now. We were a better side than Ange would have had us thought, but we're not hitting the levels of last year. And as far as Europe goes, the need to manage the squad and try and succeed and move forward on both fronts requires those fringe players to get up to speed when they get a chance in the side. And there are examples of players doing that in the same numbers of examples of players not doing that. And I think that was really apparent last night.
We'll talk more about a few of the players Temps mentioned there in more detail shortly. Just on the game, Pete, a couple of questions. I mean, if you were rating that performance out of 10, what mark would you give it? And secondly, how important actually is it that we finish 8th? We've talked a lot about finishing top 8. It only saves us 2 games. Is there a lot of value in that, or is it case now like, okay, we should have qualified now, so we can top 24, we can relax a little bit? How do you view those things?
I like that you've come to us three for sort of vague vibes after the in-depth analysis of last night. It's nice to know where we stand.
That's what the older school people are for. Yeah.
Just ask them for a number out of 10. That's as much as they can do. I don't know. That's actually a really hard question to answer. I think in the end, I feel relatively satisfied about it all. So I think I'd just give it a 7 because there's a lot of context in terms of, I mean, at the start of the game, I saw the team sheet and I was a bit sort of like, wow, what's going on here? Then my instant thought was how many players are going to be injured by the end of the 90, and to come out of that with the 3 points and with no injuries and some minutes and legs that were really much needed, and a performance that I don't think it was especially exciting, but there was jeopardy throughout the game, right, which I think made it an interesting watch. But I thought we sort of did okay, bit of a job done performance, and maybe it feels a bit like job done's the sort of best it gets for us right now. We're in a little bit of a difficult patch, I think. So I think I'll take it. I think we missed chances early on that we probably should have put away, and maybe it would have been a lot more comfortable. In the end, it was a sort of bit of a fighting, scrappy win, and the circumstances feel a bit fortunate in a sense. But I think we were probably good value for it. So I think I'd give it sort of 6 or 7 out of 10 and be relatively happy with the night's work. And on the other question, I just don't want any more games, to be honest. So it feels, it'd be really, really helpful if we could be in those top positions. Is another couple of games in February, is it? And we really could do without that. So if we can get there, great. I think it'll probably take another 2 wins, perhaps. So it might not be easy. There's tough opposition coming, but yeah, it'd be nice to get that done, certainly.
Yeah, two extra games in February it would be. So that's all we're spared, but it would be useful, as Pete says. Jeffrey in the chat asks where Greg is. He's a busy man with work. It's hard to get him on in the daytime, but he should be on again after Christmas, perhaps. We'll see. But yeah, Greg's still around. Don't worry. Right, let's talk more then about Ndoye and McAtee. They're the two that were mostly in the spotlight last night. Mikey, I've put them. I feel like they fit into one of 3 categories. So you could put them in one of the 3, or tell me I'm wrong completely. Either they're good players out of form, they're just not good enough, or they're just not necessarily the right fit for Forest right now. How do you see? Well, talk about both if you want, or just talk about McAtee to start with.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you think back to when we started the season, Ndoye started pretty well, didn't he? He scored on his debut, got an assist at Crystal Palace. He looked pretty good. He doesn't give you what Elanga gave us, but then who does? And he looked a pretty solid signing. And every time I've seen him play for his country, he's been the best player on the pitch. So I was pretty enamoured with that signing. Maybe not so much McAtee, but I'll talk about that in a second. But going back to Ndoye, it's like anything. He's coming to a different country. He's trying to settle in. He's had 3 managers in the space of 5 minutes. So you just got to give him a little bit of time. And yes, I think it's probably fair to say that his form, his impact on the pitch, his lack of taking his winger on, assists, goals, they've all dried up. It looks like he's struggling a little bit. But what I did see last night is him tracking back, him working hard, him helping out both sides, especially Abbott when he's on that side. And Dyche will like that. And there is an argument to say perhaps that he stays in the team because he's given us that, maybe not the other way. So I just think just a little bit of caution with him. He's come and he's settled. We know what he can do because he did it at the start of the season. People go through ups and downs of their form. I think if it was me, even with that said, I don't expect him to start on Sunday. I think they'll go with the fresh Hutchinson. I think Callum's done enough, especially at the start of yesterday's game, to show he's worth a start. But Ndoye, it's his first season. Even the best players historically take a bit of time to settle in. So we've just got to support the lad. Still a young lad. He's a very talented footballer. He's just struggling a little bit. So that's Ndoye. Let's not write him off. He's just going through a bit of a dip in form. But let's be honest, there's a lot of them that haven't hit the heights, that we know they're capable of. Going to McAtee, a lot of money was spent, and I think perhaps that he may have seen himself going in that Gibbs White role, but he's not shown me enough yet to say that he deserves that role from Morgan. And even though Morgan's form's gone up and down like the rest of them this season. So again, I worry a little bit about McAtee because, he comes from that school of Manchester City where it's all about keep ball. It's all about checking your shoulder, 1-2s, keeping possession, lateral passes, sideways, keeping the ball, wearing down an opposition, looking for that chance to thread that through pass. It's not really how we play, is it? Not really how we've played in the last few years. Certainly not how we're going to play now under Dyche. So I do worry a little bit. So if everybody's fit, where does James McAtee play? Well, he probably doesn't, does he? But I'd love to see a bit more from him. I will say this, though. I was surprised he got hooked at half-time yesterday. I don't think he was the worst performer out there. And I want to see a little bit more from him because he's certainly not going to start on Sunday. And I think Ndoye was probably lucky to stay on. So that's twice he's been hooked in Europe quite early, isn't it? One because he had a bit of cramp the other game and then last night. So I think my general summary would be, Matt, would be number one of those three you gave me. I think we just got to give him a bit more time. It's all about the squad, as Temps was saying. We can't play the same team week after week, game after game. McAtee and Ndoye will get significant opportunities to impress, and I think we just have to stick behind them. If we beat Spurs on Sunday and either one or both comes on and makes the winning goal, it's a completely different conversation that we're having on Monday. But I think we've got to accept the fact that we've had a tough start to the season. We're winning. We beat Wolves. We won last night. It's not particularly pretty, but we are getting those results. So I just want to see us back that up on Sunday. And I think Ndoye and McAtee have got a big part to play in it. But we just got it's still early days, Matt. You got to stick with them. They've been here 5 minutes. They've had 3 managers. Give them a break a little bit.
I was a bit surprised McAtee came off. I said my piece on both of them last night, but I thought he had a decent 20 minutes or so. And Ndoye, he did have a hand in the goal, but he didn't play very well. John Michael makes a point I was going to make as well, if it will show up. There we go. I think it was about 13 or 14 months ago, people were pining for Jota to play instead of Elanga. So fortunes can change quickly. Now everyone wants Anthony Elanga back at the club. Where are you at on them, Temps?
I can't really high on Callum Hudson-Odoi. I was just checking the stats there. He's started far fewer league games than Dan Ndoye. 14 league starts for Dan Ndoye. Where's Callum? 6 league starts and eight off the bench. I think that that Dan Ndoye is a good, honest professional, right? There's no lack of effort, there's no lack of fitness, and there's moments in games like the assist against Palace on the opening day, like the headed goal at the City ground. He's got quality. What I want to see more from him, and this is where Elanga played his way into our hearts, was the positivity. Get the ball, get it out your feet, run at your fullback. Dan Ndoye is a speed merchant. Does he use that enough? Does he target getting at his man 7 times out of 10 when he finds him on an island at fullback and backing his pace? I'm not ever so sure he does. You could say the same about Callum, right? But Callum has this positive intent. Every time he gets the ball, he's got to look forward first. If it's not on, he's very adept at recycling the ball, starting again, laying it back to the fullback and finding another way. And I just haven't seen that consistency from Dan Ndoye. I'm not sure that I nor his teammates quite know what he's going to do when he finds himself wide against the fullback. With Callum now, you can read it. He can get to the byline and cross. He's equally adept at tucking in on that off the left and finding a way to get a shot at goal with his right peg, as he did time and time again in the first half yesterday. Ndoye's not going to hit the heights of Elanga for me. I don't think he's going to be an automatic pick in the same way that he became. And he'll now suffer somewhat from the re-emergence of Maury Hutchinson, who's the most expensive player in our history, by the way, and has started to show flashes in the last few games of why we dropped the money. I put McAtee in a totally different bracket. I think that he has struggled for fitness, let alone form, when he's had his chance in the team. I don't know why he was dragged at half-time yesterday, but I would imagine he's been given some kind of instruction that he didn't carry out, or he's shown some signs of fatigue, having been given a longer period of time to prove his fitness, and he's not doing enough to make himself undroppable when he gets the call. So I think McAtee's got more of a battle on to become relevant to Sean Dyche and to be trusted in important moments. Dan Ndoye is somewhat different. He started games under all 3 managers this season, clearly trains well, is professional, is fit, and has found a way to be relevant. But could he be that much more effective if he just pinned his ears back and showed us his pace a bit more often?
Dan, who made some good points last night, I think makes another solid point here about Liverpool. So I invert to Isak. struggles to make an impact. Harvey Elliott's having a stinking time at Aston Villa and looks like he's not going to play. Ilanga's hit and miss first season. Nico Williams, people absolutely loathed in his first season here to some degree or another. You could probably name other players who didn't necessarily start well. Sangare would be another one, certainly. So you can see there's lots around it with these two. I do worry more for McAtee long term than Ndoye. On Ndoye, Pete, is he actually a winger or is he a wide forward? I don't know. What do you think about that and where we are with them?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I agree with what you said about the other players and what Dan said. I find it hard to get my head around how many lessons from history we need to understand that players need lots of time, in certain moments particularly. And we can't just suddenly forget what's happened this season. I mean, these players are on their third manager already. The styles of play have been drastically different. We've been massively struggling. We've had an enormous amount of recruitment and now a much bigger squad and players having to get to know each other. We've also had significant changes from what I can gather in terms of the sort of fitness and athletic side of the work that the players are doing. They're sort of learning on the job again for the third time this season after a very limited preseason together. I don't know how much more evidence we need that we should probably take a back seat in terms of having judgment right now and just let things play out and see how we get on. As you say, some of us were on here vehemently defending Anthony Elanga when he was getting pelters left, right and centre, and people were writing in saying, sell him, sell him, sell him. I think it's clear that the circumstances haven't been ideal. And if that's the case, then surely these players have bought a bit of time. I mean, Ndoye has played a lot, right? They're two very different cases. I don't think I quite agree with Temps about Ndoye necessarily. I think to your question, Matt, I think he's not a winger and he's not a pace merchant. He's not a direct replacement for Anthony Elanga whatsoever. When we talked about him as a potential signing at the start of the season, what we said about him was that he was someone who could drift inside, become a real goal-scoring threat, the sort of player who could pop up at the back post, whose finishing was really quite impressive and often quite inventive as well, and a very different player, I think. Now suddenly, I mean, the way I see his season as playing out, I think he was thoroughly justifying his place in the team for quite some time, to be honest. I think he was showing elements of weakness, particularly physically. I don't think it was always coming off for him, and sometimes I think he was being let down by players around him. I think the change of late is he looks absolutely shot of confidence to me, and I don't see another option really apart from giving him a bit of a breather from the team and seeing if you can get an arm around the shoulder and work on that side of things. I don't think it's massively surprising that it coincides with Davies coming in. There have been winners from Sean coming into the football club, but I think Dan Ndoye might be a loser in that Sean Dyche is desperate for his wingers to be quite old school wingers. He wants them wide. He wants them driving at men. He wants balls into the box. I just don't think it's Dan Ndoye's game at all. I think that what you wanted to get with a Dan Ndoye signing was someone who was going to contribute very significant goal contributions in a more direct way and getting in the box and being closer to the striker. So at international level, it took him a while to settle in Italy, but then really thrived. I still believe in him as a footballer, but sometimes it doesn't come off, sometimes it does. But I certainly won't be coming to any sort of major judgments after just a few months in what is as tumultuous a football season a football club would ever really have in the Premier League. It's been an absolute mess, and just because we've had a manager for a handful of games now and a bit of consistency, I don't think we should forget that. On McAtee, I think it's hard to see how he fits the style as well currently. I don't doubt his potential as a footballer, but again, even more so than most of these players, he needs to play football matches and consecutive football matches to have any to sort of have any foundation in which we can judge him. And we haven't seen that for lots of reasons. Everything is so chaotic, and it's sort of fits and starts. It's fighting for scraps, and I think he's someone who needs to be a sort of metronomic figure in the football team, and you don't get that if they're only playing a handful of games every now and again. I just think it's really hard right now. We've had such a tough season. I sort of think that we should just restrain from judgment about all the players for a good while, to be honest, and just let it play out.
Thanks very much to Ant for membership for 6 months. Hudson-Odoi looked good playing centrally. I think Hudson-Odoi was Sam's man of the match as well last night. He thought he had a decent game, to be fair. On wingers, Mikey, while the guys were talking there, I was just thinking, like, Iliman Ndoye at Everton isn't really a touchline hugging winger that Dyche had last season. He is that sort of inside forward, ghost pass players, sort of what McAtee could be. So I do think McAtee struggles fitting under Dyche, but that's a bit of a contradiction around Ndoye. So do you think Dyche, he can adapt in time, or do you think we loan him out in January and try and recover what we can and go against what Pete said there around patience?
No, I don't think he leaves the football club. I think it's just finding a role for him, whatever that is. And I think Pete's right about, these players have been here 5 minutes. We've got to back them. We've got to make sure that they settle in. There's been a lot of turmoil. However, we are winning games. Like we beat Wolves. I know we lost to Everton. We won last night, so we shouldn't be too down. So we are finding a way to, as a team, get some points on the board. Sunday's game is big. And I think everybody's got a part to play in it, whether you're Dan Ndoye, James McAtee, whoever, or one of the first names on the team sheet. It's only December. Honestly. We're not even halfway through the season. And there's been so much upheaval, as we know. So my thought process is, let's see how the Christmas period pans out and the New Year period. We then really start ramping up in the New Year. We're probably, last night's results probably got us at least a playoff. I think Pete's right. You're probably going to have to win the next 2 games to get in that top 8. They're all going to have a part to play. And I think things will become clearer as we go into 2026. But you've got to remember, we did a big load of recruitment. There's just 2 players we picked. We've got a lot of different players in. They're all trying to find their own part to play in this story of this season. So it is a little bit too early. I think the pressure's ramped up because of the struggles that we've had at the start of this season. That's the truth of the matter, right? Like if we're mid-table or we were top of the Europa League, we probably wouldn't be having these discussions. We're having them because people are a little bit nervous. And it's not exactly the season that we wanted at this point in time. But like I said, it is still early. And these guys are very, very talented footballers. We all agree, and we all agreed at the start of the season, this is probably the best squad we've ever had. So you've got to give them time to deliver. And that's not 3 months, 4 months under 3 managers. That's 6, 7, 8, 9 months going into the back end, the business end of the season, where hopefully our talents all come to the fore. So basically what I'm saying is let's not panic. Let's not panic. Let's have the discussions about where players are best suited, how they can impact the team in a positive way, how they can help us win games. And let's hope we have a better sort of middle of the season than we've had at the start. But James McAtee, he comes from a different school of Man City. We play in a different way. Dan Ndoye, new to the country. You can go through every single one of our signings. You've got to back them, and you've got to make sure that we support them, and they will have positive impacts this season. I have absolutely no doubt about it because I've seen enough. I've seen enough certainly from Dan Ndoye, and I know what Temps is saying about taking his man on, but then I'm not sitting on the fence here, but also kind of agree with Pete. It's not necessarily that player, but I think that will all pan itself out. And in a few weeks, few months' time, we'll all go, that's where he fits in. He's that guy that comes on with 20 minutes to go, 30 minutes to go. We've got this team, therefore James McAtee plays because he can keep the ball. I think we as a fan base are still learning about some of these players. I keep having conversations about Bakwa because we see what he's done in recent seasons. We don't know whether he can do that for Forest yet. He's another one. We've seen 5 minutes of him. He could be the answer. He could be a revelation. We just don't know. Or he could struggle. But I think the overarching view is you just got to give him a little bit more time. And like I said, it's nervous, isn't it? Because we're struggling, which is why the league is just so, so important. And Sunday's game is massive. And I know I have to jump off soon, but when you go through the teams on team, you'll see my team is very pinned to actually win that football game and start in a positive way. And I don't think Dan Ndoye or James McAtee plays.
You have got to go, so we shall let you go. Not much love for your Christmas jumper there, Mikey. Either.
It's just jealousy.
Yeah, he's just jealous. Don't listen.
Can I just say one more thing before I go then, Matt? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Just want to say hi to Jamie and Ellie that I met at the castle. Great people, big fans of the podcast. There's a load of people coming over from America this weekend. Has anybody noticed on social media? There's a load. So I think a lot of people all over the world have targeted this Spurs game as big 3 points. I know Will and his dad William are coming over as well. So that's going to be really good. And the last thing I'll say is, and I wrote it down, Dave at the start of this podcast in the chat put that we were like a boy band. So seeing as I'm exiting, this is the bit where Robbie Williams goes on his solo career.
Well, you have a high opinion of yourself.
Yeah. I think that's a stretch, mate. Come on.
Yeah, come on.
Temps is Robbie, isn't he?
I was going to say Temps is Robbie Williams with the hair, definitely. Yeah, I always say so.
Say Jason Orange has had a hard paper round top right on my screen, but that'd be cruel. It's Christmas.
Oh dear, Mikey. Right, we'll let Mikey go. We'll talk more about Spurs in 1 minute. Mikey, thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, everybody. See you all soon. Cheers, guys.
See you, mate.
See you in a bit. Right, I'll go back to Temps in 1 sec for one more question before we do talk about Spurs. Just before that, though, a word for the Trent Navigation. We are playing Spurs, as mentioned, on Sunday. They are open from 9 a.m. for breakfast, so do head down for that. Emily is on the mic because Fothers is away, so Emily's taking over. She's hosting the quiz. There's a post-match show with Sainsbury as well. And you can watch the game. If you're not at the City Ground, you can watch the game v Spurs. They've got 17 screens now, 3 areas with over the road as well. So do check that out. A really good vibe there if you haven't been there before. Right, let's talk. One more question, Temps, before we talk about Spurs. Just brushing up players who probably won't feature against Spurs, but did feature last night. What did you make of Zinchenko, Kalimuendo, and John Victor are probably the other ones of conversation. What did you make of them?
John Victor did well, had a bit to do, didn't he? I think he was fortunate that the stingers were straight to his hands, but not a lot bounced off him. And I felt he was solid enough. I will say that he dived past his near post for their equaliser. Body weight shifted to the right, and he got his positioning slightly wrong there. But I'm being hypercritical, given that the big lad at the back stick was completely unmarked. So yeah, passable performance from John Victor. No problems there last night. Zinchenko, it almost looked like he'd been briefed to rein it in a little bit, right, and be a little bit more cautious, not to play with that reckless abandon. That said, he finds himself in the 18-yard box and could well have scored. That's the best of what he does. But I think that the brief he'll get from Davies is, don't abandon your post. You're not an Ange fullback anymore. Do what I need you to do. What I need you to do. So he was fine for me. He was the third player mentioned. Kalimuendo took the goal really well. Can't leave the line on his own in a 4-5-1 or some variation of 4-3-3. He's not the answer. He was playing because Chris Wood's injured, and we need to preserve the legs of Igor Jesus. So did well, right? Impacted the game, but I'm not having him as plan A in a 4-3-3 or 4-5-1.
I was going to move on, but that's a bit problematic. If you spent 25 million quid, Pete, and he can't play in the system that you want to play, in Temps' opinion. Just before we talk about Spurs, do you have any different opinions on those lads, or anything you want to add? Those three.
I'm slightly more terrified of John Victor than Temps seems to be.
I was as well.
I don't want to be too uncharitable, but
he dropped much last night.
It was it was just decision making where he rushed out of his goal, and just moments with keepers. It's so hard to judge a keeper. We said this last night. They're the last line of defense.
5K jog in the first half, didn't he? And just buggered off for a while. It was mad.
If they make a mistake, it's so highlighted, isn't it? I mean, we talked about Dan and Ndoye. His touch was bad, his confidence is low. If a keeper's like that, then it's much more terminal. But yeah, sorry, I sort of talked over you there, Pete. Victor did worry me a bit more in isolated moments.
Look, I think the thing about goalkeepers, and particularly massive Brazilian goalkeepers who give us a bit of a sense of trauma, is that a lot of the sort of analysis analysis is probably over-egging it a bit, but a lot of the way we look at their performances is quite sort of vibes-based, isn't it? Like a lot of it is a sort of feeling that you get from them because they're not doing it. There's not an awful lot of action necessarily happening. And with John Victor, I mean, he sort of dealt with most of what he needed to do okay. I'd say the goal was a bit problematic, and there was a couple of moments where I sort of wondered why he was just careering around like a lemming or something. But he saved the shots he needed to. Having said that, I don't think he did anything that was like wildly impressive, and even some of his handling and stuff makes me feel a bit anxious. So yeah, I wouldn't be desperately pleased if it turns out that Sales is injured and can't play in the Premier League. I think I'd be feeling pretty scared about that. Kalimuendo, I think, he's been a real hard worker in the games he's played, and he looks to me like someone who probably needs a bit of work with confidence and stuff as well. But I think the uniting thread here is that we've signed quite a few footballers who probably aren't designed to play in the sort of manner that Sean Dyche would want to. I mean, I think the story behind that is relatively obvious if you look at what happened during the early stages of the season. I think there was a plan to play in a certain way, and probably also a plan to potentially swap managers to a certain Australian chap. And I think a lot of the players that we've recruited were perhaps, recruited with that in mind. And there's quite a few players who are going to have to adapt a fair bit. I think Temps is right about Kalimuendo. I don't see him being a regular starter in a Sean Dyche side, really. I think system-wise he could play in the system, but if we were dominating the ball and we had players in the midfield looking to slip in behind and such like, but we're just not playing that style of football at all. It's quick, it's direct, it's crosses into the box. It's going to be asking him to have his back to goal and do a lot of work that he doesn't really want to be doing. That's the player he is. But we did get a moment, didn't we? We saw sort of hustle and bustle and effort to get through into the moment where he could have the shot. It was all very sort of messy but committed, and then a great finish. So you can't really say much more for him, given that we've said that he doesn't really fit the side too well.
I'm going to truncate this Spurs preview a little bit because we've done 30 minutes and it was supposed to be 15, but that's the way we always do things, or I always do things. That's entirely my fault. Although Mikey and Pete are probably the longest talkers on here, so that was also my fault for putting them on together. Right. Oh, yeah. Spurs at home. Just before I get into what they're thinking, the lads are thinking about it. Looking at some of the stats, we're 18th in the home table this season, 7 points from 7 games. We have 2 wins out of 11 at home in general. So we've only beaten Leeds and Brentford, which isn't what you want. Spurs are 3rd in the away table, 14 points from 7 games, despite some not good performances in a couple of games, certainly. How are you feeling about this one, Temps?
Yeah, I mean, good luck predicting this one, right? Which Forest are going to turn up and which Spurs are going to turn up. They've seen off Slavia Prague and Brentford in the last 2 games, so they were pretty dire before that throughout November. So yeah, I wouldn't even like to hesitate to guess the outcome of this one. How do we win it? I mean, they show reckless abandon at times as well, right? They have a lot of players that like to maraud forward, and Jed Spence is that archetypal type, isn't it? We saw the absolute best of him in that championship season. He's played his way into the England squad, but he leaves pockets in behind too. So I think it plays into our system. We need to have a wide threat. We need to counter their wide threat, and without sounding like a complete cliched talking head, got to score first, because I just think getting ahead and staying ahead is our way to win this game. Spurs are a wildly unpredictable side. They had a shocker domestic last season, still managed to win a European trophy, and their season from this point could go in either direction. All 3 results possible.
Frank's instinct, Pete, seems to be to try and just rein them in a little bit, pick Bentancur and Polinia, go against the instincts that Temps mentions of players like Spence and Xavi Simons and guys like that. More recently, the fans have wanted him to revert to a more attacking team and only play one of Polinia and Bentancur. We discussed that more on the opposition preview, which is out today for members. What are you thinking we might face, and what are you hoping for from us?
Well, I agree with almost everything that Temp said. Spurs are a really funny team. I don't really know what they are supposed to be. And I mean, I guess the interesting thing is you could probably level a lot of these accusations at us as well sometimes. But Premier League form's a bit messy. 2 losses, 2 wins, a draw. There's almost no enthusiasm whatsoever from any Spurs fan that I ever hear speak about the side, even when they've won. I think they look a relatively aggressive side to me. I think they got the 5th most fouls per match in the league and the 2nd most yellow cards. but they're not really defined by a heavy high press. I think they'll play for set pieces, I guess. I mean, they've had the second most corners in the league this season, and I think that's a concerted effort. Obviously, Thomas Frank and the sort of Brentford system have got real history with set piece innovation and mastery. So I think that's the way they go. It's really hard to sort of pin down a personality or an identity to the side, to be honest. They're not a heavy direct long ball team. They do have a fair bit of possession, but they're not stringing enormous amounts of passes together and sort of dominating you to submission or any of that sort of stuff. I think you've hit on something that it looks to me like the last couple of games, perhaps they have tried to make a bit of a change. Archie Gray coming into the side, and it's a big difference. I mean, I know you're a João Palhinha fan, Matt, but for me, he is just a tackler and almost nothing else whatsoever.
You can't put him and Bentancur together; they're too similar, I think.
I mean, you certainly can, but it doesn't look nice when it happens, and I wouldn't want to watch it. But with Alfie Gray, they've got someone who can receive the ball on the half turn, and he's gonna get them up the pitch with his playmaking ability. So I'd be more worried if they do play like that, because I think we're vulnerable. Like defensively, we haven't looked brilliant. There's been spells in pretty much every game where we've been able to been made to look a little bit ragged. Brighton, obviously, in particular, with their sort of movement and the slickness and the fluidity, which is something you could see the sort of names on the Spurs team sheet in theory being able to put together, even if we've not really seen much of it from them. I'd be more happy if they did go for the sort of the cloggers in central midfield, to be honest. I think Anderson and Sangare and Morgan Gibbs-White would be able to play around them, and that would give us less to worry about. But yeah, it's going to be set piece testing, I think, and we still don't look great. Yet another example last night of extra men at the back post and nobody communicating it and reacting to it. I don't really understand how that is possible. It feels to me like surely Zach Abbott or somebody else should just say, lads, have you seen what's going on back here? Because it was just so obvious. But yeah, so it'll be a big test from that sense. But as Temp says, God knows what we're going to see. I think you don't have a clue what Forest are going to turn up, and you don't have a clue what Spurs are going to turn up. And frankly, Forest can be brilliant and dreadful in one game, like we were against Brighton. So, God, predicting it is a losing game, I think.
Let's have a look at some possible teams. I mean, I think the 10 of the 11 probably picks itself. I don't know, that people might disagree. I'll ask Temps in 1 second. I think the team will be assuming Sells is fit, obviously, Savona, Milenkovic, Murillo, who was great to have him back yesterday. Thought he made a really positive difference. Nico Williams, Elliot Anderson, I assume it'll be Hutchinson and Ndoye. Hutchinson and Callum Hudson-Odoi on the wing, and then Gibbs-White in behind Igor Jesus. I think the only selection debate is, do you play Douglas Luiz, who looked really good but would be a big fitness risk? Do you play Nicolas Dominguez, who was probably my man of the match, or do you play Ibrahim Sangare in I think it's his last game before AFCON. I've read a couple of conflicting things around that, but I think it is his last game. What do you think about that team, Temps? Is 10 of the 11 nails, and then who would you play in midfield, or do you see things differently?
That's the team I'd like to see, with the coin flip between Sangare and Douglas Luiz. I just wonder, historically, Forest haven't exposed Callum Hudson-Odoi to back-to-back starts when he's played significant minutes midweek. And I just always wonder if he's managing some kind of the hamstring injury from earlier in the season, or the kind of chronic Achilles that he's had in the past. But I'm always buoyed when I see Callum Hudson-Odoi's name on the team sheet and out on court before kickoff. And yeah, that's the team I'd like to see. Where would I go between Douglas Luiz and Sangare? Douglas Luiz is a Rolls-Royce footballer, isn't he? And if we need him to come to the fore during Sangare's period of absence. And let's hope that withdrawal at half-time was with a view to him being able to start this one. So, yeah, I'd go with the team we see on screen, with Douglas Luiz in for Sangare. I just can't help but think that Dan Ndoye has got a shout, because one thing he is very resilient and available come what may, and doesn't seem to suffer the after effects of a midweek game in quite the way that Callum does at times.
How would you feel, Temps, if Ndoye does start? Would you be thinking, what are we doing here? Or do you think there's merit in it then?
No, because the bit that we don't see, right, we're picking a team based on footballing ability, and we don't quite understand where their bodies are at and what their recovery cycles are like, do we? But if you look at the exposure that Ndoye has had, he hasn't yet come off the bench in the league. He started 14 games. I think I'm right in saying it's Sells, Gibbs White, and Ando that have started more games than Ndoye. He's durable, he's resilient, and he gets starts because of that. I personally would like to see to see Callum start.
Pete, same sort of topic on the team in general, but specifically that midfield battle for you.
I think the team that you've got up, so with Hudson-Odoi and Hutchinson, Sangare, I think that's the team I would probably predict will start. Although I take Tanta's point about Hudson-Odoi in particular. I would be really keen to get Dominguez into the team if it's possible. But I mean, I thought he looked great last night. I thought he was the driving force for us for much of it. And felt to me, although this may just be sort of writing your own narrative after the fact, but it felt to me like he'd sort of stepped up and taken a bit of responsibility on with the armband and really sort of being a central figure in the team. And I love to see that. I've always felt, and I've said a lot on this podcast, that he's a sort of underrated player, and I still think that the Dominguez-Anderson partnership could be the most reliable that we have. So I would consider that. I think the likelihood, though, is that Sangare plays, and in all fairness, he deserves that spot. Plus, he's going off to AFCON, and Douglas Luiz has only trained twice, I think. And is, famously not necessarily in peak physical health. So I'd be sort of surprised to see Luiz starting, to be honest. So it's hard to say, but Dominguez also looked shattered, didn't he? I don't know if you felt that as well, but he looked pretty knackered after when he went off last night. So look, I think it'd be Sangare. I think Hudson-Odoi and Hutchinson are the wingers that should probably play, because Ndoye, I think he needs to come out of the limelight and just have a bit of get Woney sort of having a bit of time with him and trying to get an arm around his shoulder and find his confidence and work to see how he can have an impact on the team, because I firmly believe that he can. The only other change that I would really welcome, and I've said this several times on the pod, so it won't be a surprise to anyone, but I think there's every chance that Cunha is a better option at right back than Savona, who I just think he gets caught out quite a lot, and it worries me. But it won't happen. So I think this is the team that will start, and I'd be pretty happy with it. I say this is the team with Sangare instead of Dominguez, I think.
Could he play Dominguez as a winger, Temps, or is that putting the manager on a hiding to nothing in a home game when it didn't work last time against Brighton?
Why would you? We've got that stockpile of players that are available and are specialists in that position. I just think that Callum Hudson-Odoi and Amari Hutchinson will benefit from the dual threat. They won't be doubled up on in quite the same way they would be if on the opposite wing was Nicholas Dominguez. It means we can attack down both channels, keeps the fullbacks honest, has all kinds of knock-ons. We're creating space for Morgan and Elliot Anderson to get on the ball in the final third. I would like to see us pick two specialist wingers.
What about just on the fullbacks? Nico's going to play. Any chance Zinchenko plays? Wouldn't for me, or you don't play Savona and you play Cunha or Zach Abbott would be an option, or would you just go with the two on screen?
No, I think Savona's he's done enough, right? He's scored a couple of goals which have masked a couple of defensive frailties and at times quite basic use of the ball, but he hasn't let himself down. I'd pick Savona.
Very good, very good. Right. Anything you want to add, Pete, just quickly before we move on? There's a couple of other topics to discuss. Anything else on the game before we move on?
No, I don't think so. I'm sort of intrigued to see it play out, because like both of us have said, I think it's a very hard game to predict. So it'll be interesting. I'd really like to see a little bit more solidity from Forest. I think it has felt a bit like that's fallen away, both at set pieces and in open play. I think we're giving up a fair few opportunities, and teams have made us look quite stretched at moments in recent games. In some varying opposition. Even Utrecht last night had a period where they were fairly rampant for a bit, and we looked a bit under the pump. So I'd like to see us try and get back to that. And I think when you look at this period of games ahead, so we've got 7 Premier League games and a FA Cup game before the next Europa League game. It's actually, it's a tough run. There's a lot of tough fixtures in there. I guess that's always the case, but still. And I think we are really going to have to be solid, because I could see us maybe getting 3 wins or something in that grouping of games. But I think we'll also really need to pick up some draws and some sort of solid 0-0, 1-1 type results if we're going to, pull ourselves away from danger. And that's not going to be possible if we're giving up so many opportunities. So I think we need to find a way to get back to our best. It feels like we're not quite there.
We're preempting with it entirely here, Temps, but without knowing how the game plays out. But is a draw here, a draw v Fulham, that would give us 8 points from the 6 games we targeted? Is that all right, or do we not? We can't view it that way.
No, I think we're setting out to win, aren't we? We're setting out to win. We're not in that bottom 3. Every point counts. Let's camp and try and find a draw. We've got to get in that positive mindset. And I think with players in the midfield like Elliot Ellison, like Morgan Gibbs-White, you're not going to keep that ilk of individual happy with a negative game plan. I think we're going out to beat Spurs and Fulham, and I think that the team will be forgiven for trying, right, more than they'd be forgiven for camping and trying to scrap for a 90-minute draw. I don't see that happening. Now, look, if you go into the last 5 games of the season and point a game feels like where you need to be to solidify and avoid relegation, different conversation. But we're in a period of the season now where we've got to move.
A couple of things to wrap up then in a minute. Just before that, word of thanks for Home Move Estate Agents. Big thanks to Ben and the guys there for renewing sponsorship for a whole of the year throughout 2026. So really grateful for that. Big relief, trust me. So thanks to them. On screen is this week's property of the week. Wilford Lane, West Bridgeford, is on the market between 310,000 320,000 guide price, and I'll read out Ben's words here. A stunning 2-bed apartment nestled on the serene banks of the Trent in West Bridgeford combines contemporary living. Is that cat AI, by the way? I didn't know if that was a real cat. I might come back to that. Combines contemporary living with the tranquility of nature right at your doorstep. 2-bed, 1 bathroom, allocated parking space with electric vehicle charging capability, easy access to the river for walking and jogging, if that is your persuasion, and a private garden as well. That cat looks AI to me. I don't know. I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure it's
you got to get back on screen for us to have a judgment on that.
Okay. You got to go shortly, because we probably talk about football, but I might put it back on.
Do it next time.
No, I'll do it now. Hang on.
What's happening? Tell you what, this is 2 for 1 for the guys.
I know.
Ben Lots of Sales got some drone footage for me of Trent Bridge here that I don't have to commission.
He could do. We could have a word with him, certainly. I think so. He might do. The estate agents' videos, they love a drone video. A guy I went to school with just on now, right? The cat's coming up, so I feel like I've filled almost relentlessly. Have we missed the cat?
No, there it is.
No, that's a real cat. No, so he's casting a shadow, Matt. That's a real cat.
I don't know. I just feel like I assume it's real, but
you can't trust anything in the modern world, can you?
No.
All I would say is, don't think about it too much. Like, get on with your day at some point. Like, it may or may not be. Don't overthink it.
Answers AI in the chat as well. So I think so. Right. 2 things to wrap up quickly. Ola Aina, Temps, not in the AFCON squad for Nigeria. Commiserations to him, because every player wants to play for their country in these big tournaments. Instinctively, that feels like good news for us, because we can get him back in the squad in January, unless we're not hearing something that his injury is worse than it is. But he should be. September was his injury. It was 3 months. So good news for us, you think, instinctively?
Yeah, I think to credibly turn up at the AFCON, all the European Championships, all the World Cup, you need to have played some games for your club before you do that. And whilst the club v country debate seems to have mellowed in recent years, his rehab and his living comes from Nottingham. So I think he's made a mature decision there, and I think we'll see him play for Forest during the cycle of that tournament. So yeah, I feel for Ola in missing a trip with Nigeria. He'll be amongst the front runners for that tournament. But look, he's one of our best players, certainly one of our most consistent players. And if this means he's available to us for a few more games than we could reasonably expect. If he was at AFCON, then it has to be good news for us. The quicker he gets back into that side and we can reunite him with Nico Williams, Murillo and Milenkovic, the more solid and resilient we become and the better football team we are.
Dan, who's a cat owner, says it's an AI cat. So this is the big debate today.
Dan's cat is a bit mad. We have discussed this before. It's always waking him up being sick and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Can't be without him. Yeah. Marty asked, when did Chris Wood get injured? It was on international duty, I think, wasn't it? And then I really want to know if Ange made things worse by playing him against Chelsea when he could barely move, because he hasn't played since then. I don't think he did it against Chelsea, but that was when he did it.
I think it'd be fair to say in the end that Ange made everything worse, Matt. So just go with it.
Does go with that, I think so.
Just quickly on Aina, the only, I don't know if this is one of those questions that just reveals how hopeful or otherwise you are. The one thing that worries me about it is that I had a look at, I think it was in the Athletic, did a piece about the Nigeria squad, and they are like properly shorn of all the other options at fullback and in defence generally. So it does worry me slightly because I think they've got Bright Essay Samuel at Birmingham who could play right back, I think, but they're very little else fullback wise. So I think there's a chance that if Ola Aina was any sort of fitness, they might have been pretty persuasive to try and get in there. But obviously we don't know what we're talking about. So hopefully it is just exactly as Temps has laid out, and he's going to come back into the team, because if he does, and if he can get himself, I say fit, I mean, he's obviously we've not seen him for a while, but I do recall Ola Aina being the sort of player who almost never looks fit and always looks knackered and broken. But if he can get anything back to his best self, then it's an instant enormous impact for us, isn't it? And I think the change would be pretty tangible.
Steve asked in the chat, when in January you can amend the squad? I think it's the 1st, but I don't know. Maybe it's not. It's a transfer window. So.
I'm pretty sure it's any time during January, but at the end of January you have to submit a final squad list.
I think so. I think that's right. He could play in the FA Cup regardless, because you don't have to be in the squad for that. If he's fit, the 3rd round ties against Wrexham while we've been recording, it's been announced for Friday the 9th of January, 7:30 p.m. on TNT. Rather annoyingly, 3 days before West Ham. So does that guarantee, Temps, we're going to have to play a shadow team and put our FA Cup spot at jeopardy?
Yeah, absolutely. Premier League takes priority over all else, and we've got to get used to that. If we're not a team that now expects to be pinged out of cups in the first round, irrespective of the European adventure, we need to maintain some depth that allows us to compete on multiple fronts. I don't think you can play 50 games at Premier League, FA Cup, Europa League intensity. So we will put out a team that will be more than enough to compete with Wrexham, despite their riches.
Compete with, but beat is another question. It's one of those where you should win the game, isn't it, Temps? But
yeah, I think we'll beat Wrexham.
I hope so. We made hard work of a few like Exeter and Luton.
Oh, Swansea, geez, yeah, it's triggering me now.
And Blackpool away, where we lost 4-1 or something like that.
Oh, so, decades ago now, Matt. Things we've been through the last few years, geez.
Pete Blackburn, anything you want to add? Any final thoughts before we go?
No, nothing from me. Just well wishes to all of those carrying their booze bleakness from last night and the last few days. I know Matt will have no sympathy, but I'll wish you all the best through your travails, and hope you come out the other side.
I saw Anna, it was in the chat earlier, from Amsterdam Airport, and I think she's had a couple of rough nights. Paul Morley said he would have missed his flight back, but for the fire alarm at the hotel going off at 7 a.m. or something, so he definitely has.
Oh, I want to see a picture of Paul Morley. He's got to look like some sort of harrowed ghost, surely.
It's all relative with Paul Morley. There might be one hair out of place compared to 0 or something like that. I don't know. There is a vlog that will come out later. Chris and Paul were there. They've sent me some footage. Chris has sent me loads of footage. Paul sent me a post-match video at when he woke up at 7 a.m. and he obviously was hammered when he did it and didn't watch it back. So he just did it as a time lapse. It was about 90 seconds condensed into 3. So there's no post-match thoughts from Paul because he was too drunk.
Bertels, Frank Clarke and Colin Barrett in your vlog?
I hope not, because judging by where they were going in Amsterdam, no, they're not. We'll move on from there.
Easy.
Temps, anything you want to add?
No, I'm at Trent Bridge tomorrow. If anyone's walking from that side of the city and then they're not going to the NAB, then yeah, feel free to pop in for a pint. But enjoy the match day. We've got some good ones to look forward to over Christmas. And I really do hope we take on a positive mindset and try to beat Spurs, which I fully expect.
We will be back tomorrow, so do join us for that. Do hit like and subscribe before you go, or consider membership or Patreon or a lovely 5-star review on Apple or Spotify would be great. Tomorrow's show is the opposition preview with Baker. Some good insight into Spurs there, and then post-match show on Sunday with Mark and someone else will be a good guest, and then on to Monday as normal. So thanks to Pete, thanks to Temps. Do hit like before you go, and if we don't see you tomorrow, we shall see you soon.